So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. This is day 6 of the cleanse, I believe, for us who are doing it right now. We will go into like question and answers after this, but in the beginning, I just wanted to talk about kind of what I tell everybody in my office for how to eat and how to think about kind of our cravings and what might be underneath it all. So that's I think honestly one of the most important things to know about is the adrenal glands, which in mainstream medicine there isn't really focus placed on them except in the instances of autoimmunity, which is Cushing's and Addison's disease. But besides that, really you have to go to a functional medicine doctor or alternative doctor to work with adrenals and help get them healthy. So basically, the adrenal glands are these little glands that sit on the top of the kidneys. They're quite small, the size of an almond, maybe walnut in some, and they're responsible for many things in the body, but for our purposes, they're responsible for secreting stress hormones. So cortisol and adrenaline are kind of the two that people popularly know about. Everybody knows what adrenaline feels like. That's a big surge and it usually dies down quite quickly. Cortisol is more insidious though, in that it comes up, but it can last a long time in the system. And both hormones are secreted in times of stress. So we have fight, flight, freeze responses when stress occurs, and the cortisol and adrenaline will be what are involved. So long-term stress just sort of kind of stacks that cortisol up, stacks it up, stacks it up, stacks it up. So it's harder to return to baseline with chronic stress. And one of the things I've been really fascinated with adrenals way back from when I was in chiropractic college and afterwards is that I didn't understand when how we could basically function in our world without supporting them. So back in college, in chiropractic college, all I needed was I craved licorice tea. It's by Yogi Teas. It was my favorite and I drink it all the time. Well, come to find out that licorice is a really incredible adrenal support. And it's in a lot of natural products. And at that time, that's all I needed. And I was okay between that. After I had my first baby, I needed more serious adrenal support. And I was tested at a seminar, and the practitioner there told me to take 2 of these glandular supplements twice a day, and it was a total game changer for me. So at that point, which was 2009 on, I have made it my devotion to learn about the adrenal glands. And there's a lot of so in the old Hans Selye model of stress, it's like the initial is like the alarm phase, everything turns on. And then as you go more chronic, you can actually get like an adrenal exhaustion or fatigue. And that's not the best way to say it anymore. There's new languaging, but again, for like the layperson, that's a really easy way to look at it. And then the classic model was like, you turn on first, all those levels are high, the cortisol is high, DHEA is another hormone that's high. And then as things go longer, the DHEA will drop, the cortisol will drop, and you'll get more of an adrenal fatigue situation. So you basically, the glands get like worn out. Why does this matter? Well, it really matters because those adrenal glands and those stress hormones are really important for how we engage in our life. Like we don't have a lot of motivation or desire or even energy to take on new stress, even exciting things, when the adrenals aren't doing well, because that cortisol is that get up and go hormone. It's highest in the morning. You should wake up with it nice and high, and then it gets lower and lower throughout the course of the day into the night, and then it will restart, start building back up around 3 a.m, which is interesting because that's when a lot of people tend to wake up, in the night. And then it rebuilds, but we should wake up and just want to jump out of bed with our cortisol. It gives us energy and motivation and do our day, right? So in an adrenal exhaustion situation, there's no get up and go. Oh, hold on a sec. I have to let it's like the get up and go got up and went, right? So that's kind of a easier thing to fix, truthfully. In medicine, you can do even hydrocortisone, which is it's a bio, like a, it's basically taking cortisol. And cortisol is a really important hormone that we don't want to get fatigued out of our bodies, because it's anti-inflammatory and it's immune suppressant, as well as other things. And so it really does keep our inflammation in check. It like prednisone is cortisol, right? Yeah. So that's what you give to people who are in big autoimmune flare-ups. So imagine if you have autoimmune processes or inflammatory processes going around your body long term, and that cortisol is dipping, right? You're going to not be able to respond appropriately to these processes, and then they'll get out of control and you won't feel good, right? So the low cortisol is also important because it really relates to blood sugar. And when somebody tests lower blood sugar levels, so you can test that with fasting glucose. In functional medicine, we want it above 80. Anything kind of 83 and below is low, and hemoglobin A1C was a 3-month marker of blood sugar. And there's a lot of differing opinions in functional medicine. Some think like, oh, go low, it's great, like that's going to be really healthy, because that means your internal blood sugar for 3 months is on the low side, so you're not at risk for prediabetes or diabetes. But what I've found in my practice is that anybody under like a 5.1 or so is actually really not having enough blood sugar, and it probably is an indication that their adrenals are fatigued. So remember, those adrenal glands respond to stress, and internally in the body as well as externally. So internally in the body, it's stressful when the blood sugar drops, right? So it's the adrenal glands. This is very simplistic, but it makes sense. It's a nice story. So it's the adrenal glands that are monitoring, and when that blood sugar drops, they're the ones that kick into gear. And what they do is they secrete cortisol and different signaling to the liver to secrete stored blood sugar. So the liver stores blood sugar, and then that will get released, and you'll be able to stay balanced blood sugar even when you're not eating, right? So in a fasting situation, you should have the stores. Well, what tends to happen with our culture, and probably more, but I can't speak to that, is that we get worn out with our stress response system quite young. And then what happens is when the blood sugar dips, the adrenals just don't quite have the gumption to get that stored blood sugar out, or they've maybe taxed the blood sugar stores already because they've already been signaling so much. And so basically what happens then is the person goes hypoglycemic, even when they think they're eating, or maybe they are eating regularly. And that hypoglycemia, most people know what that feels like. It's like the hangry, the shaky, your brain stops working, you can feel a little weak, get really moody, yeah. Some people get headaches. And when you've gotten to that point, it's already way too late, right? And one of the things that's so wonderful about this cleanse, and I forget this, but that SP Detox Balance product is incredibly blood sugar stabilizing, right? I don't know what magic it is, but I find that when I'm doing that smoothie, I don't get the lows in the same way. And also then if you are getting those lows, we should, think about adrenal glands. So adrenals are interesting too, because we can go into, I kind of think when I was younger, we were in a model of adrenal depletion. Like everybody seemed to be just depleted. And now I feel like the last 7-8 years, more what I've been tracking is adrenal, what I call dysregulation. So sometimes it's high and sometimes it's low. Participants, can you guys, I can do it. Never mind. Mute. Okay. I'm going to mute them just since I'm recording this. Okay, great. So the dysregulated pattern can look like sometimes you're just exhausted and you don't have that get up and go, but then sometimes you're just super anxious and you feel like something's wrong for no particular reason. I call it inappropriate anxiety, like where you look at your life and you're like, I don't understand why I feel this way, but I really feel like something's wrong. And that happened for me after my third baby, when I got super dysregulated. Three babies is a lot in 5 years. So basically the first things I started noticing were like, oh, I can't drink caffeine because I get too wiggy, right? Because that's kind of a higher cortisol state. Caffeine, particularly coffee, really revs the adrenals. It's sort of like an adrenaline surge, and ultimately it's not great for our adrenal glands. But that was kind of my first clue that something was going on. And I thought, well, this is kind of great. Like, I'm so healthy. I don't even need, caffeine. And then things tipped, and I started having a lot of anxiety, which I'd never had. And I started getting signals from my body that were like, something's really wrong. And so it was just really interesting, because I had never experienced something that my body was telling me that in my mind, I thought, well, I probably don't have liver cancer, and I probably don't, like these sort of things, but my body was telling me there's something really wrong. And so then I just started learning, just deep diving into cortisol again, and measured everything. Because in my training with my dad, when you don't feel right, something's wrong in the body. It isn't like an external thing, it's an internal thing. And so I did all my blood work, and my cortisol was lab high, like 27, and lab high is 18. And so I thought, well, of course, then I feel like something's really wrong, and this feeling of dread, and then I'm dying, because cortisol is supposed to only be secreted in times of stress, right? Of like danger at those levels, like you're being attacked, or you need to fight, flight, freeze. But mine was being, and I think this happens quite often, secreted inappropriately, like really high in the mornings, and then just regulated pattern throughout the day, if especially my blood sugar went low. So what was happening is my blood sugar was going too low at night, and instead of just doing like a nice little spurt of cortisol to get my internal stores up, my body was like, ah, and I had a lot of ill effect from that. So so I wanted to kind of teach these different models with the adrenals and blood sugar and cortisol, so that you can kind of gauge throughout the course of the day, like, where am I? Do I have the energy I want? And these are all testable. You can test cortisol and DHEA, so you don't really have to guess, which is nice. But a lot of it, I feel like you can figure out through like your blood sugar stabilization, and like your post-meal sweet cravings. A lot of this stuff is tied to a lower adrenal function. And so then what do you think about that, right? Well, imagine if you are low adrenals, but you're not really eating regularly, right? Then you're just going to be pulling on those adrenals all the time. So a lot of, particularly women in our culture, try not to eat, or have been taught not to eat, or have the resulting message was, you have to look a certain way. So if you're not hungry, great, don't eat, And so unfortunately, what that does is that's constantly taxing the adrenal glands, because then the adrenals are looking around all the time. Are you safe? Are you safe? Are you safe? And no, you're not safe. You need blood sugar. You don't have any internal stores left, or they're low. And this isn't okay, right? And AKA then you'll get this anxiety around it often. And how that also manifests is a feeling, when the anxiety kicks in, you also don't feel hungry. And more than that, you can even feel nauseous, because you've gone past all the signals, and you've gone into a real serious stress response. And so kind of the way to deal with that is eating regularly, right? And if you're not eating regularly, then the adrenals are going to be taxed, and you're not going to heal one without the other. Likewise, taking adrenal support and getting your adrenals nourished. Like when I was in that postpartum state, I had to eat every 2 hours. If I didn't, I started getting anxious. Now I can go like 4 hours, and my adrenals are in a much better place. And so it's just sort of gauging yourself without the cultural messages of like what you're supposed to be doing, is really gauging yourself. Like, how long do I feel good in between meals? What do I need to eat at every meal in order to sustain and maintain between meals? Because once you've gotten to that place where you are kind of hangry, or your brain's not working, or you're starving, you know, or even you're like gone past starving and you're like nauseous and you just can't even imagine eating, like that, you're done. You have like majorly put your adrenals in a stress response, right? And then the other thing is, one of the big things with healing the adrenal glands, and we talked about this last time, is just getting enough protein, because the adrenals love carbs because it's quick sugar, it's quick fuel. It makes you feel good right away. So imagine you're in a stress response, and people call it like, you know, they have their like eating for comfort and eating to feel better and emotional eating. Well, if you're in a stress response and you eat, it's going to tell your body you're safe, right? Like, you're not going, if you were really being chased by a tiger, you wouldn't sit down and have a meal, you know? So eating is actually an input to tell your body you're okay. So for me, like when I was waking up with really high cortisol levels, I would force myself, I called it distracted eating, because I didn't want to eat. I didn't feel hungry, but I would like grab on things as I'd walk through, because I knew if I could get food in me, then then I'd feel better, you know, then I would stop, hopefully break that cycle. So actually when you're in that state, carbs are fine in a way, because it does get your blood sugar up quickly and it takes the stress off the adrenal glands. But ideally they'd be carbs like fruits and vegetables, not like, you know, the bagel or the mocha or the whatever else people grab for, you know, pastry, you know, that's an awful thing to wake up and eat from because what happens is when you eat too many carbs, you spike up, but then you just drop back down. Now, when that drop, what's going to happen? Your adrenals are signaling again. They're telling you, oh my gosh, the famine, really it is here, or, you know, there's something really wrong. And then, and you go into that whole thing again. So the way also to really work to heal the adrenal glands through diet is through eating enough protein and fat, right? Because that will sustain and maintain you and satiate you, so that after you have the nice blood sugar raise, you don't do this, you kind of do lower. And then ideally you eat again before you dip past that. So I just told Lauren, no joke, I love butter. I will eat, like I had my kitchery tonight. I had probably had 2 tablespoons of butter on it. And for me, it's healing food. And it's interesting, there's a really neat book called Sand Talk by a Aboriginal man in Australia. And he talks about like the nourishing things they ate at different seasons. And one of the seasons they would eat this particular salmon, because it was when it was the fattiest, and that was the best thing for the flu season. And, you know, and it's like, so really, if you have particular craving, like I crave butter. And so I drop the carbs down and eat butter, you know? So if I like, one of my favorite treats on the cleanse is like a rice cake, you know? And so I'll cut the rice cake in half and double the butter. Or if you're going to have a piece of, you know, something carby, I feel like, you know, unless you have specific glucose issues or things like that, carbs aren't, you know, they're important. They're important if you're low adrenal function. But just decreasing them and adding more fat and protein will help you feel better and more stable, and also then work to heal those adrenal glands. So does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about this? I mean, I think I've kind of talked to most of you about this already too.
I think so. What's the supplement you typically give?
So then, that's a great question. Supplements for adrenal health. It really depends if you're in the fatigue state or the low, which at that point, glandulars are really great. So traditionally people have eaten kidneys, and still do in like Great Britain. That has the adrenal glands in it.
No problem.
Yeah. And so you're literally eating, and traditionally people ate organ meat. The meat we eat off animals, like the lean meats, would be the last they would actually want to eat. And so eating those glands helps support our body, because it, number one, gives a little bit of replacement, Number two tells the body what a healthy adrenal gland looks like. And so there's actual glandular supports that multiple companies make. They're pretty popular. And I like using them that are grass-fed cows from New Zealand sourced, really cleanly, because you just want to be careful with that. And then there's also really great herbs. So like one of the ones I use for that the most is called Adrenal Live by Zymogen. And it's a mix of herbs like rhodiola. What else is in there? I can't remember off the top of my head. But then the glandular mixed. And the glandulars on their own are pretty much safe for everybody because they literally are food, But then when you mix the herbs in, you have to be careful for side effects with certain medications, things like that. So that's a really, those are great for low adrenals. For more of a dysregulated, ashwagandha is really great. Licorice is good. It's a little more of an upper, but it's quite good. But you can't take it if you have high blood pressure because it can stimulate that.
Does fennel or anise have same benefit?
Fennel or anise, I think they're more digestive support. Yeah. And then for people who have the real wired hyperadrenals, calming things are really great for that. Ashwagandha is actually great in that case. And then skullcap is another herb that's really great for lowering. I really there's a cream called Adrenacalm. It's a lotion that you can use topically for when you're stressed and cortisol is raging. And I actually have people put it on their nightstand. So if they're waking up at night, that really helps. Also Zymogen makes one called cortisol. Lemon balm is great for lowering cortisol function. And so it's just sort of a matter of if you want an upper, a downer, or a midline. And I have articles too on my blog on Heather Hunt DC about that.
Can you tell from the blood work?
Absolutely. Blood work and intake really let you know where people are. Cortisol and DHEA. Okay. Yeah.
The Adrenal Essence. What is that one for?
Adrenal Essence is by Zymogen, and that is a really nice kind of post-infection. It's got some immune supportive things. It also has cordyceps, which is traditionally it was a fungus that grew on caterpillars that the emperors of China would take as a fortifier. And so it's very fortifying. It's not you won't notice a big boost with that, but it's a great let's get this system back online support. Yeah. And so it's just great to have these different tools in the toolbox. And then to see too, one of the things I'm experimenting with right now is that I get sweet cravings after meals. Now that can be an insulin issue, which is all well and good, but I've been doing experiments where I'll take an adrenal support right before the meal. And I'm doing this adrenal tonic, which is a standard process product that I'm bringing back in. We actually used to make our own herbal tonics, mix our own. They're more expensive, so I kind of stopped selling them for a while. But I'll take a little shot of that, and then I'll eat my meal, and the sweet cravings afterwards are not there. So there's a lot. I think a lot of people get really down on themselves for having sweet cravings or having to eat too often. And I think a lot of this really goes back to adrenals. We talk a lot about insulin, and that's great. But if our adrenal glands were working perfectly, then we probably wouldn't have these same cravings or these, because we wouldn't need that extra boost, which our cortisol should be providing, right? So, yeah. Do you have a question?
No, I was going to cough and it went away.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to go through that with everybody. The protein, we talked about that last time where we really want to be getting enough protein, and that in itself will heal, really work with the adrenals. And then just not to be super afraid of carbs. We definitely are decreasing big time, but we don't need to fully eliminate. And I think we will come probably, who knows, probably in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe earlier, a swing back from this whole keto phase that we're in, where they took out all carbs, and even the paleo, and kind of swing back into realizing that our bodies I mean, we just need balance. And some people do really well with those diets, and that's great. It's just learning about your body type, or maybe we phase it. Like for me, I know I can't do keto. No way. My adrenals would not tolerate that right now. Intermittent fasting, where you don't eat for a certain amount of time, that's really hard on a body that doesn't have good, strong adrenal function. So it's fun as these things heal and we can take on these newer challenges or diets or ways of eating, but we really have to make sure the foundation is there so that we don't make things worse. Yeah.
Can you heal your adrenals long term?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the question is, can you heal your adrenals? I think you can make them a heck of a lot better. And then I think it's an ongoing process. And why I think that is because one of the things I pay a lot of attention to and is one of the tenets of vitality medicine, which is the new model of health that I'm working to develop, is that the human design is an empathic design, meaning as humans, we all are empathic, meaning we're all connected, we're all symbiotic, we're all feeling everybody around us, we're all responding. And even narcissists are empathic. It's just as John O'Donohue, who is an Irish poet, said about narcissists, they need love so much they turn it all towards themselves. But if the human design is an empathic design, we are constantly responding to the world around us. Now, we happen to be alive in an age where we got internet, we got cell phones. There's a really neat book called Empathic Civilizations by Jeremy Rifke. He's actually I think he got a Nobel Prize in economics, and he tracks empathy through time and through civilizations. And one of the really interesting things he talks about is the way the brain changed and empathy changed from going from non-written to written language. And it's something we don't think, I mean, I had never thought about it, but basically before written language, everything was taught through oral traditions. And so there actually was almost a mind meld. And he said, therefore, it wasn't like empathy is developed more as we've moved beyond, because for empathy, you have to have a sense of other to feel, anyway, he's got this whole argument. But he tracks funny things like the chair wasn't invented till after people were reading. Everybody sat on like their benches or sit on the ground, but like the individual chair where you could sit by yourself was post reading, because after you could read, you could get your own ideas in your own private space and have your own thinking. And then after you write, you can, like, I don't know about you all, but when I write, it's completely different than when I'm talking and how I think when I write. And it's very independent, right? It's very creative. It's very sourced from within versus this, like, let me talk to you. Because when we talk, we're always thinking about what the other person is thinking about, if it's okay with them, how they're going to take it, because we're empathic. And so one of the things I realized with my adrenal glands is that I was having a lot of daily stress just due to my highly empathic nature and just responding to the world around me. And I was realizing even picking up my phone and reading my text, I'd have a stress response. And so we are in this real like brain change time, not to mention everything else with new frequencies and new foods and, all this stuff that everything is like the environment, plastics. I mean, that was we didn't have plastic water bottles when we were kids. There were no plastic bags at the grocery stores, and like those all in the environment. We just have a lot of changes that we're living through that I just tell my body, gotta adapt. It's okay. We're fine, but it does put a lot of stress on the body. So how can you heal the adrenal glands? I think you can get them at a very high functioning place. Ideally, if you have the right lifestyle, it takes privilege. Right. We saw that with COVID when people of color were way more highly affected by the virus, because of chronic stress issues, and people that was acknowledged in public health and in scientific research. So we can get into a certain point, and then it's going to be a lot of maintenance, right? And seeing what we can truly take, how far we can push, when is it okay to rest, and really learning, I think, learning about how our bodies are signaling us and listening to that and honoring it. So there's a really great podcast and book by Trisha Hershey called Rest is Resistance. And she's this incredible woman who is a descendant of slaves, where her ancestors' bodies were used basically as tools of production for capitalism. And so she decided that the most important thing she could do is rest, and that that's going to be what breaks capitalism and white supremacy and, all these kind of hierarchical patterns where we really base our bodies are kind of based off what we can produce. And even our identity is based on production, how much money we make. I mean, even throughout the course of the day, I had this conversation with a patient earlier this week who's basically retired, but she's gone back to work because she wants to feel productive, and which is great. But how do we balance that with rest and downtime and rejuvenation and letting our adrenals heal and nurturing ourselves and feeding ourselves well and all of that? So I do think it's very ongoing. And that's why I think it's really important for people to understand it and have tools so they know it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even feel. I remember one of my first seminars with adrenal glands. I remember it was after I had my second baby. I remember raising my hand in front of this big room of people and saying, so if you don't have the energy to do something you really used to love to do, like kayaking, because you just don't even feel like you have the adrenaline, does that mean your adrenals are fatigued or out, and as I'm asking the question, I'm answering it, I'm like, oh my gosh. But it's a great eye opener for me. I mean, I was already trained as a chiropractor. I already had taken adrenal support. And still because we're not the best always at gauging ourselves, which is why I love having a healing team, right? But then to really take those moments for check-in of oh, I don't want to go do this fun thing because I don't feel like I have the energy, or, just to check in. So, all right. If you guys are okay, I'm going to kind of end this part and we can move to Q&As and all of that. And then if people have questions about this, we can definitely talk about that. But that's kind of the main things I wanted to say about blood sugar and adrenals, because they're so intimately connected. So, but I think all of you are pretty great at it. So how's everyone feeling? Pretty good? Anybody have any big detox?
It's funny, once a day, I'll eat something and immediately start sneezing, or I'll feel a big flush, and that's not something I've been aware of before, or never really
Coughing?
connected. Huh?
Coughing?
No, coughing.
What did you say? I'm sorry, you had, what was
no,
the?
it's just as far as what exactly. I tried those sesame crackers, which are in the booklet, and they're fantastic and easy to make. And I sat down this afternoon to listen to something, and I had 2 crackers, and immediately, I went bright red, and I was coughing, and so I'm like, oh God, it wasn't flour. There's almond flour in it, and a sesame seeds. Well, what else could it be? But it was
super interesting.
Larry was right there, and he's like, okay. And it was the first time where there was no competition for other stuff I ate. It was like a snack, with a couple of hours on each side and it's like, okay, what is in this? So I'm gonna have to test it another way. But it just seemed like with what we're on, it's kind of just easier. I'm not eating all these other things.
Right.
And I'm not sneezing when I have, or whatever, when I take when I make the shake.
Right.
So, but a couple hours later, I have a sesame cracker, and it was obvious.
So sesame is one of the top, a lot of people are sensitive to sesame.
It's too bad. It's really.
I know, I'm sorry.
Almost brought crackers for everybody.
So we could test it.
Yeah, it's a really good recipe.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But
That's,
mostly this week for me, I just wasn't. It's been hard to do 2 shakes a day. I am.
that's what
finding
we were
it's
talking
really
about.
Filling.
It's so filling.
Like I'll
Yeah. Can you
You
imagine
were-
3 shakes a day? They want us to do 3 shakes a day.
well, I'm gonna force myself to go back and have a.
I know,
shake
I am
now.
too, but so ways I've been doing it is just mix it with water or like something, those second 2 scoops, but I have not hit my 2 shakes a day every day either. And so what I'm kind of wondering about is that when we add in the SP cleanse capsules for the second shake, and Lauren and I were talking about this earlier, because if you have anything planned for the day, like where you eat meals, it is really filling. And so I was gonna experiment a little bit with it and see if I could do 2 meal replacements with the 2 shakes. Or one, another idea is to replace that second shake with SP cleanse capsules for the detoxification and not use the shake. So I guess it really depends on what people's goals are. I haven't heard of anybody who's really detoxed hard. It seems like there's been some little headaches and things like that, fatigue, but nothing like flu-like symptoms or, yeah, great. And again, I think that we have a really healthy population here. Somebody I was talking to who's doing it with us right now did it last year and really did detox, and now they're fine, but a lot of, I think when you keep the product in too, like you guys did, Steve, where you keep doing the shakes, you're not going to have that same ideally detox reaction. So anyway, those are just ideas, because it's hard. Even 4 scoops is hard. Yeah, you can't do it.
I wake up in the morning and I'm not interested at all in the shake. And
Yeah.
so I can do an avocado, and I like the fact that it's fat, I
Mhm,
guess.
mhm.
And sometimes I'll have an egg and half an avocado or something. So I'm feeling okay, protein and
Yeah.
fat, and that is filling, and it really keeps me going.
Yeah.
And then I used to want to do all this stuff in between until lunch, and now it's like 1:30 or 2, and I'm like, okay, I better have lunch,
Right.
and then I'll have a shake,
Yeah.
and here it is. It's like,
And then, now
I'm
we're
not
here.
hungry yet.
Exactly.
So, but I'm gonna do it just for the vitamins and.
I know. So
protein
that's
and
where
all.
it's like, yeah. And what I didn't talk about actually with the blood sugar adrenal talk is the in middle of the night time. And a lot of people, when they do wake up kind of that 2 to 4 a.m., it's that the blood sugar has dropped. And so doing that shake before bed might be a good idea, especially if you have problems in the middle of the night. That might be a great way to use that one.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because one of my questions was, it didn't make any sense to me, but I've really had trouble sleeping since I started doing it.
Really?
And which I couldn't figure out, if it was coincidental or.
Yeah. Trouble sleeping. So, probably not. I mean, it probably is directly related. And so, yeah, I would sort of think about, are you eating close? Like, do you have a good dinner? And then, it might just be part of the detoxing. I don't know. We'll have to, why don't you try the shake before bed and let us know?
That's what I've been doing, because I just can't do 2
Yeah.
full shakes a day, as I've been making the shake in the morning and splitting it between breakfast and lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great.
But I can't imagine putting 2 more scoops in there and doing a whole nother shake.
I know. Yeah. And then, and third.
Yeah.
I started the magnesium, it seemed to help me actually pretty good.
Isn't it amazing?
I was worried about, constipation or something.
Yeah.
And haven't had any problem.
Great.
At all.
Great.
Great.
Yeah. And no one's had real constipation issues or, right. The opposite. A little bit more. Yeah. That tends to be. Yeah. Are people getting the daily emails?
I haven't yet.
Did you sign up for it?
Oh, I must not have signed up for it. I haven't been.
Okay. I'm going to try to work on that tomorrow a little bit more. We do have some people, I would say a handful of people signed up. And so I need to see if they're getting them. And then I actually have the next 4 days off. I'm going to be writing with my friend, but I always get a lot done when we're writing. And so I'm going to really check in. It's been a kind of a MailChimp nightmare, but I'll check in because I actually updated all those emails for this cleanse. So it's kind of a bummer if people aren't getting them.
Every day. I don't
It
know.
should be every day. There's 21 of them, 22 actually.
Had it.
Okay. But did you go in and sign up?
I didn't go into anything, I just.
Okay.
knew you had,
Yeah, you have to go in and sign up for them, but
On
okay, so
your-
that's good to know.
On your site?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
I noticed they came into my spam folder when I first started getting them, so I had to go in and search for it.
okay, but you're getting them
But
daily
yeah,
now?
I'm getting. them
Great.
daily, so
Okay. So
if
that's
they don't appear in my feed, I have to.
I signed up for the,
great.
company, the,
Standard process.
thank you, and they're sending me stuff every day.
Oh,
Right.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I should sign up for that.
Yeah.
And then how are people feeling like with just sort of like the effort of it? Or has it been hard for people or is it fairly easy?
It's easy, I'm glad I don't have to take a lot of pills.
I know.
Mhm.
It is nice.
I'm using the chronometer app every day, like a little bit obsessive.
Can I see your data sometime? I would love, how are you doing on it? Like,
It's good, but I'm like, oh, I did the laundry, I'm gonna put that in there, like just weird, like random things, but it's good to see. I'm curious, like when you said carbs, like what is the amount that we're targeting? as far
so
as-
for weight loss, it's under 100 grams a
Okay.
day. You know, for maintenance, it's higher. I mean, that's kind of a general rule for probably most of us. Probably for maintenance, it would be more like up to 150, you know.
It's telling me to be at 235.
Carbs a day, 250, yeah.
Like today I'm at
That's-
120.
Yeah. So 128, you probably have to put in a bit of effort to keep it that low, yeah.
You know,
Or did
like
it feel
everyone's
okay?
saying those shakes really fill you up, and I've been having my shakes like at 10 in the morning, so then I have a really light lunch because I'm not hungry.
Yeah,
But that helps me have a light lunch.
right.
And then I'll have the other shake around, right, about an hour before dinner time-ish, and then same thing.
Smart.
So by the time, and then I have breakfast, like at 7, and it's a smaller breakfast, no shake.
Uh-huh.
So by 10, I'm kind of hungry, and then the shake gets me through, so
Right.
that's been working.
Right. That's
I
great.
can get the 4 in easily if I do it that
Yeah, that seems really, and then you won't be as hungry for dinner, won't be as hungry for
way.
lunch.
Like right now, I feel so full.
Yeah, and you haven't had dinner.
I had cauliflower and kidney beans for dinner and the shake,
Yeah.
and I'm still so full.
Right. What is in there?
It's great.
It's
protein.
Great.
Well, it's only 17 grams of protein. I know it is kind of magical. My sense of, I mean, I don't know. My sense is that it's so nourishing, like micro nourishing that our bodies just go, great, I'm satisfied. I don't need more, But then it's so interesting if you think of that versus having a bagel or something where you're hungry like a half hour later, or an hour later, because it's like empty calories,
But the chronometer also is interesting to see. It's so that satisfying to see like all of the vitamins you're.
Oh,
hitting
yeah.
All the targets.
Yes.
And that's just like, oh, okay, except for the chlorine.
Chlorine? No,
Choline.
choline. Oh, really? Is that low?
It's
Choline?
not low, but that's,
Interesting. Okay.
but everything else because of those shakes, because of the.
And you can probably scan the shake in, huh?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
all in there.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's all in there.
that's cool. I've been thinking about doing that
Everything that you're eating.
Yeah.
in that chronometer, the free app. It's
got-
super helpful. That's a
I
great
use
idea.
Lose it's really good.
Yeah, I've
for
used that
me.
one a long time ago. That's good.
And it's got, maybe it's the same with you, you can select for it to scan your food.
Yeah,
And I
same.
scanned this product and it went, so. it's
Great.
Really neat.
Okay.
You just choose the amount and you know what you did at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm hoping people can hear here on our, let's see. Okay, Veronica says she's getting, is there a specific, Okay. Is there a specific tab on the website that I'm looking for to sign up for the emails? Yes. If you go into Heather Hunt DC, it will be in under the cleanse tab and then under the cleanse resources tab. Yeah. And I can email that out again. Like I said, I'll be a lot more available in the next few days. And I might need to hire someone to help me with MailChimp again. But I will,
Are you gonna, when you have the old ones in there?
Yeah,
you resend them?
yeah. What I want to do is just create a document with hyperlinks to all the emails. It's, I worked so hard on them. I want you guys
Yeah,
to getting them.
some last week on there?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we can do that. So let's see, tomorrow is the end of week 1. And then next week, we aren't going to have a meeting. We're just going to sail through, and then we'll have a final meeting that last Tuesday, the 7th. And at that point, we'll kind of talk about food reintroduction and what to look for. I mean, Steve did a great demo of what happened when he ate sesame seeds, right? But those sort of things are things we will look for when we start reintroducing foods. I had an interesting experience actually, because we went to Frank Fat's last night for my uncle's birthday party, and I was like, I am not going to miss my favorite shrimp there. They have these incredible candied shrimp with walnuts, but I won't eat the cake. Like, I'm on my cleanse for the cake. So I didn't eat the cake, which I was super proud of myself, but I had the candied walnut, shrimp and no rice. And then I had eggplant and some other kind of rice noodle type dish. And this morning I woke up with my left sacroiliac, which is kind of my canary in the coal mine spot, like kind of sore. And then I went to my exercise class and I got like really sore, like in a second, but I wasn't doing anything. And so I was thinking like, wow, something I ate, I think made my back hurt. And that's, this is why people, when they go off gluten and all their back pain goes away, or they go off dairy, because all those nerves that innervate the digestion also innervate the back. There's viscerosomatic referral patterns and somatovisceral. And so anyway, it was just interesting to me. So I don't know exactly what it was that I ate. I do think I'm rather nightshade sensitive, and I ate eggplant. I don't think it was the sugar, but on the prawn or the shrimp is my guess. But it was just sort of like, so now I'm same thing. I'm going to kind of look at it because I've been doing great. Like, honestly, I felt way better on the cleanse. I'm kind of shocked by, I didn't even want, like, I did want the cake a little bit, but mostly the whipped cream off the cake, not the cake itself. But I was really I've been pleasantly surprised by how little I've been wanting, with the exception of like dark chocolate, that I've been wanting to reach for something sweet. And that's the really neat thing about this program, is that by the time we do this for 3 weeks, it really does change the way we see that we can live, and the choices that we can make, and how our bodies feel when we really do pull those foods away that, aren't really helping us. Really.
Continue to take do the shakes?
Absolutely. You
I
can
mean,
definitely
it's still-
continue the shakes. And honestly, when I did my first cleanse in like 2011 or 2012, I guess is when we started. I did the 3 weeks, and then I was like, I am not done. So I took a week off, and then I did another 3 weeks right away. And then I took a few months off, and I did another like 2 weeks, and then I got pregnant with my third baby on accident. So be careful. I got really healthy. But it was interesting because I was the oldest I had ever, for a baby. And I had a great pregnancy and birth. It was like the easiest, best. And I think it's because I was so healthy after doing all the cleansing. So, you really just have to gauge. And I've used that SP Detox product, honestly, for years now. I think it came out probably about 3 years ago. I've used it on and off for years. And I just figure it's great to keep a mild detoxification going on. We are still living in a rather toxic world. And it is interesting. I mean, I kind of wish we had somebody that was like, really had a big reaction, because then you could see that it does happen, that people really do feel terrible when they start this stuff at the
I've been
dosage.
Feeling way better.
You look-
I feel like
Yeah.
20 times better.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So I can say that I had a pretty extreme reaction in a good way.
Good. Yeah. And actually me too. Is that how everyone else is feeling?
A lot more
I
energy.
actually just started on Monday.
Oh,
I had to
great.
go out of town for work for the
Yeah.
weekend and I just didn't want to be starting.
Well, that's
until
great.
that
But so
time.
you're only day 3 and you're feeling okay?
Yeah.
Great. Because yeah, usually the first few days are the hardest.
Yeah.
So
I've got to say, this is and the fact, and I think it's the fact that you're allowed black tea makes a difference. This is the longest since I was probably 14 years old that I've been off coffee.
are you serious?
And
How has
so
that been for you?
The only time it wasn't good was the day I did just green tea instead of black tea, and I did get a caffeine headache.
Yeah,
Green tea didn't quite
green
do
tea
it.
is not so good.
But as long as I do my black tea, I'm doing just fine.
And you're not, I mean, I would think you would sleep great being off coffee. Right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that congratulations, that's huge.
Thank you, yeah, I mean, every time, I've done cleanses before, and it's like, well, I'll do everything, but I'm not going off. the
Yeah.
coffee.
So that says a lot for your adrenal health too, right?
Yeah,
And how your body's balancing.
so I'm really excited about that.
That's huge. I'm really excited about that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll be curious to see how it goes in the next 2 weeks and how you feel. Yeah. Well, awesome.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other, I can unmute people online if anybody has anything more they want to ask or comment on. Let's see, I guess I should turn up my volume. I hear somebody. Okay, that's not.
This is wrong. They
That's
did me.
Mhm.
So I did it once, sent off a
Oops.
created an account.
All right,
sent off
let's see. I'm not getting the emails. I checked my spam. Okay, so I'm going to work on that tomorrow. So yeah, I think let's call it good. I was hoping to be about an hour. It's an hour. And great job, everybody. I'm really stoked to be doing this. And I think it would be fun next time too to really go through if there's specific things people have questions about, we can definitely do that. And then next week to really go through any modifications or changes we think. And also if people want to be pushing those detox pathways
Great
differently,
idea.
or if we want to do a phase 2, or we do, just to kind of let's be in contact and feel free to email me. And
Oh,
like,
really?
wow, I feel so great. Now I want to do more,
Cool.
before in this 3-week cycle, and we can kind of co-create this program more. Yeah. Oh wait, I see one more.
Thank you, Heather.
Weeks that follow
Thank you.
is when you really need a lot of support, because if you've been, say, eating pizzas and all this stuff, and then you do this, and it's so simple, and you're full. All of a sudden, you're done with that, and you're like, okay, now what?
Right.
And what I did with your help over the last year was really learn how to do, saute vegetables. and
Right.
Eat a lot more greens and whatever, and it really helped.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm much healthier this time around.
it's so great.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, thank you, everybody.